Welcome to. Oh, wow. Actually, wow. Totally off. Totally off. This week we have a bunch of topics. We have questions on Arthurian Republicanism, uh, the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and Charles opines on the us versus them mentality in the United States. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with some Martian, Charles Coulombe.
Starmation?
Starmation.
Rhymes with Dalmatian?
That's right. Kind of unusual. The Sarmatians were a large confederation of ancient Iranian equestrian nomadic peoples who dominated the Pontic steppe from about the 5th century BC.
So you're saying that I'm basically an Iranian nomad dominating the Pontic steppe?
Basically, yeah. Basically.
Okay, well, we all have to find our niche somehow. I guess that's mine. All right, very good. I'm fine. I'm a Sarmatian, whatever you want. I'd rather be a Sarmatian than a Dalmatian dog.
Well, that's for sure. So, yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was just going to say, you are at the luxurious new waiting room there at the Tumblr House Towers. I see that the new tower, the new wing, is going up behind you.
That's right.
So all right, that's the new tower. I'm actually in my hotel room in the socially prominent Castle Hill hotel. There was the Castle Inn. Anyway, it's one or the other. In Warsaw, literally yards from the Royal Castle, rebuilt after 1945, in the old town of Warsaw. And I'm feeling very, very, I'm feeling very Polish, actually. I don't really have much of any Polish blood, but I'm feeling very Polish. People here know how to eat, I'll tell you that.
What do they eat over in Poland? They eat a lot of Polish sausage?
Oh, yeah. And they eat a lot of pork and potatoes. I mean, it's as in Austria, but different. So I've food-wise, I've done well. The people have been great. Had I been in Vienna, I would have been on the March for Life today, which I normally do this time of year. But since I'm here, I did what I was asked to do, which was to participate in the 1000th anniversary of the Polish Kingdom, 1025 to 2025, and the anniversary of the proclamation of the independence of the Kingdom of Poland in 1918, under the Austrian and German aegis. So we had a Tridentine Mass in the morning, followed by a number of speeches at the Copernicus column at the university, marched down the main drag there, the Krakowi Narodnie or whatever it is, and came back to the castle and had more speeches, one of which I gave at the Sigismund Vasa Tower right by the castle. And then this evening was a series of lectures, and I gave one on monarchist traditions in America. And so that was great. Next weekend, I will be in New Hampshire.
I thought it was New York.
Well, that's the weekend after.
And
then I'm coming home. I'm leaving Austria for the New World on the 9th, and I'm returning on the 17th. So I've got a lot of travel, but then on the 21st, I'm going to go to Zagreb in Croatia to celebrate the feast day of Blessed Emperor Karl. I'll come back a day after that. And then I don't plan to travel anywhere until late November when I go to Hungary.
Okay. Well, that's good. Recoup, rest up.
Not just recoup. I'll spend Halloween in Trumau. I'll carve the jack-o'-lantern for the kids. And November the 6th, sorry, the 8th, November the 8th will be my 65th birthday.
Wow, what a big one.
65 golden years, ladies and gentlemen. I tried to get the ITI kids to pool their money and buy me a gold watch and get me a pension plan, but no one was interested for some reason. They said, shouldn't the Tumbler House Tower get you a pension plan and a gold watch? And I said, they don't retire people from the pension. Look at poor old Rose. She's what, 87, and she's still working.
Yeah, we do things a different way, a better way here.
Wait till you drop.
No, well, that's for lazy people, Charles. Lazy people. Yeah, work till you drop. Yeah, okay. I mean, we encourage people to be enterprising, to work smart, not hard, right?
So do virtually nothing, but keep doing it till you're 106.
Well, I don't know if that's a fair characterization, but okay.
I'm just going by some of the work habits of your junior executives that I've observed in action.
All right. I'll leave it at that.
There's not a lot of speed going on in some of them executive suites.
Well, it's not blue collar work, Charles. They're thinking, right? It's called ideation. You ever heard of that?
They're thinking with their eyes closed.
They're doing important things, Charles. I don't know how many times I have to explain this to you. They're innovating.
Look, all right, to me, closed eyes and regular breathing are not effort. Look, if I'm like this, right, I've got my hand on my expansive gut, and I've got my eyes closed, and I'm going, I don't think I'm doing that much.
Look, it's thinking it to come through with a breakthrough idea. It takes time. What did you say? Like, to have a good opinion on something, it takes more than reading a Wikipedia article. It takes a lot of time and thought, right? Change can happen indiscernibly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Indiscernible and see. That's the key word here.
Because look if you are trying to melt ice and you're changing the temperature of the ice, it could go from 15 degrees, 16 degrees, 17 degrees. Nothing happens, right? It could be a while until you have that breakthrough, that moment, right?
Okay, then why is it when you've given me deadlines, I have to have fulfilled them by a certain time?
Well, I think everything is pretty much you can take at face value, right? There's nothing underneath the surface there. It's just simply we need these words. We need this action. Are you going to do it? Yes or no? And then, now
So
for that we don't want any sitting around lollygagging, right?
I see. So basically, it's like policing in Britain, two-tier. In the immortal words of Secure Stormtrooper, there is no attack on freedom of speech in Britain, and anyone who says there is will jail him.
Right.
That's not weird.
Okay. So we're live right now this episode. How do you feel about that, Charles? How does that make you feel?
What's that?
Being live for this episode. People are in the chat. People are talking. Usual suspects. Yeah, absolutely. You'd actually have to go to the channel and then look at the video and then look at the chat. You can do that, but don't be hogging up your internet bandwidth or resources, do it on your phone if you want. I recommend
Yeah,
that.
let's see what we got going on the phone. That sounds like fun. No, but I can tell you honestly that what's going on is that we are in the midst of autumn. And you know what that means?
What does that mean?
Well, it means the beginning of joy. It means the beginning of, oh, look, there we are live. We're not doing anything now.
You have to click into it and look at the chat.
Okay. I'm looking at us. Oh, heavens, who we got here, guy? Thomas Bryant, Aaron Hook, even to the dutiful dawn of the published peon. That's me. Suburban Catholic. Oh, my goodness, Chad, is this real? Well, I don't know.
Suburban
Real
Catholic is Andrew from New Jersey.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Aaron Hook retirement is one of the heresies of the modern age that Tumbler House will never entertain. Gosh, ain't that the truth? Oh, man. Well, this is lovely. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Glad to have you aboard. Glad you're not bored to be aboard. Anyway, yeah. So we're here, and we did this strictly on the spur of the moment because we felt like it. And part of this was because the captain here has been really, I don't know, revivified by all the construction going on, and I'm in Warsaw. What can I tell you? No, it's wonderful. But it is autumn. It's October, the October country, as Ray Bradbury put it. And in fact, since I can never resist. I can never resist Ray Bradbury's comment on the October country. I read this every year, and I don't apologize. It captures so well the spirit of this time of year. Here we go. The October country. That country where it is always turning late in the year. That country where the hills are fog and the rivers are mist. Where noons go quickly, dusks and twilights linger, and midnights stay. That country composed of the main of cellars, subcellars, coal bins, closets, attics, and pantries faced away from the sun. That country whose people are autumn people, thinking only autumn thoughts, whose people passing at night on the empty walks sound like rain. The October country. And that, not only is it mysterious in and of itself, it's the build up to the great period of celebration from Halloween to Mardi Gras. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we said this to our patrons at the pre-show. I'm going to tell you now. Pull it all together. Get all that nostalgia out. We need it. The times are insane. The times are mad. We know this. It's all bizarre. Pull your friends and family close. Celebrate, beginning with Halloween, ending with Mardi Gras. Celebrate every holiday you celebrate with all the gusto and gladness of the past, the hope for the future, and keeping safe in the present. Lock the doors, draw the drapes, play the music. Internal joy and external safety. That's what we need.
Okay.
Well, I mean, imagine, if you will, a place not like the Tumbler House Tower, but imagine every home safe and locked away from the horror outside, and yet inside filled with joy and glee and happiness. That doesn't sound too bad, does it?
Doesn't sound too bad at all. That poem always gets me in the mood. Or is it a poem on October Country?
It's not really a poem. It's just his intro to his book, The October Country.
It's good enough to be a poem for my money. It's so evocative to me.
Yeah, me too. And That and Lovecraft's poem October, I like pulling out too this time of year. And Liborio Romano's All Souls, which is delightfully creepy and yet very pious and devout.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it a little bit. A lot happened in the past 2 weeks.
The first thing I have to comment on was the death of our dear friend Gary Potter.
Of course.
Gary died September the 9th. I only got the news of it more recently. For those of you who don't know him, he was an editor of Triumph magazine. He was a personal friend and mentor of mine, a friend of Vinny's and of his brother Steve's and of all the drones. He was an honorary drone himself. Nobody could do an Elvis imitation like Gary Potter. It was unbelievable. In fact, I didn't believe it myself, and I helped him do it. But back in 2019, I composed a poem in his honor. It's 4 lines, and it seems truer now that he's gone. Gary was involved in a lot of good Catholic causes. Some of them I worked with him on. Most of them didn't really go very far at the end of the day. And so I wrote this, 4 lines. Our hopes for early triumph fail. The causes that we fought for die. Still avidly his cross we hail in silhouette against the sky.
That's from the White Cockade, or a very similar line is in White Cockade.
No, it's not. I wrote it years after.
Okay, well, you have a very similar line in White Cockade about being a part of a dying cause, I think.
I'm sure. Well, the one you're thinking of is A Note of Dissent.
A Note of Dissent, that's right.
And that goes, that's rather longer. It goes, I must admit that I often dream of the glimmering light of the old regime. In my secret garden grows the lily and the fair white rose. Over all, the mournful cry of the double eagle fills the sky. In this day of grenade and tank, when real power lies in the bank, such yearning for a muse of fire runs counter to approved desire. But still I hope a day will come, before my tale of years is done, when exile to the realm of dream is the soulless face of the new regime. That was actually one of Gary's favorites of that book, from one decade. He was very fond of that. And I'm glad I knew him. He was a bridge between, in a lot of ways, between the old world and the new. And we won't see his kind again. So, of your charity, please pray for the repose of his soul.
Okay.
I lost 2 other friends this past week.
That's
Dennis Redmond, whom you know.
That was shocking to me because he obviously Dennis was early 60s, I thought, and I didn't know he had, I didn't know he was sick.
Well, so he was, and he's gone. And then the third was you're behind me at Bishop Alamany, one of my very best friends from high school, the late lamented Jim Barringer, who got cancer. And it was a hard week for me, to be honest.
It feels like a really heavy year of losses, like an especially heavy year.
Yeah,
it's been rough.
Which is why embrace the holidays and think of all the people that aren't with us anymore. Your people. I don't mean just yours. I mean your people, audience. Think of the relatives and the friends who are gone. Hold them to your heart. Pray for their souls. Remember the joy that you brought them and that they brought you. Don't let it get you down that they're gone, because if nothing else, they're spared whatever garbage we're going to have to go through from here on in. But I remember Gary and his equally deceased wife, Virginia, was a wonderful woman. I really loved Virginia Potter. She was just great, a real doll. But they, in the earlier years, they were great entertainers at their DC apartment. I remember it was 88, 89, I guess. I was there for New Year's Eve. What a wonderful party that was. And so much fun. And treasure it, ladies and gentlemen. Treasure the memories of the good times, because they will help you when times are not so good.
All right. Shall we get into it?
Let's do it to it.
Okay.
You had something you wanted to bring up. I know.
No, I wanted to ask you very specifically. I'm really curious to know your opinion on the incident with Jimmy Kimmel. Because that was, I guess, surprising, and it's unusual, and I feel like you're going to have a very interesting take on this.
Well, first, Jimmy Kimmel used to be one of the big, back when they still did it, Jimmy Kimmel was one of the big sponsors of the San Gennaro Day festivities in LA that they used to have. But honestly, I think the reaction, the jumping on him was nasty and severe, but at the same token, if a man of the right had made similar comments about, someone on the left getting it, he'd have been crucified. Beheading would have been too good for him. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of doing that to celebrities when they express ideas I disagree with. But the sad truth of the matter is we've gotten to a place where it's okay if my people do it, but it's bad if the other ones do it. And Jimmy Kimmel got a slight taste, although everybody rallied around him, and now it doesn't matter. But he got a slight taste of what it's like being on the right and misstepping. How many times does a comedian make a racial epithet and then he's destroyed? So if that's okay, then what's wrong with Jimmy Kimmel getting destroyed for making tasteless comments about Charlie Kirk? On the other hand, if it's wrong for Jimmy Kimmel to have his career destroyed for that, then it's wrong for a comedian to be destroyed for racial epithets. You can't have it both ways. Well, you can, people do. But if you're going to be above the emotional age of 4, you got to get beyond, my side good and okay, that guy bad, and they got to be punished. Either an equal playing field or everybody shuts up. That's how I feel about it. It seems fairly simple to me. Mind you, Jimmy's got more money than I'll ever have, so I obviously I've got the envy of a working class man for the well-to-do elite.
Okay. Was there any other current events that happened? I feel like there's so much. Was there anything else you wanted to comment on before you get into the questions?
Well, yeah. This weekend, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg abdicated, was replaced by his son. Now, this Grand Duke Henri, who just stepped down, he was the one who refused to give the Grand Ducal assent to a euthanasia bill. So the government altered the Constitution to get rid of the Grand Ducal assent. Well, in a situation like that, let's just rip up constitutions, because it shows we don't need them. We have politicians who do whatever the hell they want to do, so why not just let them do it? Why impede them? Because it's so wonderful. Why let anything get in the way, like, checks and balances? Why not get rid of elections? Let them elect themselves. I mean, honestly, the political class have become such utter swine. It's amazing to me that people take them at all seriously. I mean, well, you have to because they own us. And that's why, in a lot of ways, I feel that the COVID era was one of the best I ever lived through because everything was honest. Ye are wholly owned. We're only here to be milked. And our masters in church and state couldn't give tuppence and we live or die. Great. That's wonderful.
You know what's always amazing to me, because you're talking about the political class, and it's always amazing to me when we see some of these pictures, and both sides seem so chummy. You know, where in the public sphere they're just like screaming at each other, but then it seems like behind the scenes they're all friends. Do you think that's true, or
Well,
do you think I have a false impression here?
not necessarily. I mean, look, you let's say you've got three different farming families, right?
Yeah.
Or three different dairy families. They have three different dairy farms. They're competing for the market. They're competing for sales, right?
Yeah.
But for the cows they milk, it's all the same, isn't it?
I guess so. I mean, aren't they competing for cows though? I mean, if it's a true metaphor, I mean, aren't they
Well, yeah, but I mean, but the essential role of the cow doesn't change. Is there to be milked.
yeah.
And mind you, they may have squabbles. They may be annoyed with each other. They may not be. They may get along together. They may go vacation together in the Bahamas. But the place of the cow doesn't change.
I guess what I'm trying to question and get at is my impression that politicians this is going to sound very naive, but politicians absolutely don't believe their values at all that they espouse. Like, that's just business, like that's just compartmentalized, like, oh yeah, well, we have all these donors, so this is what I do. It's not necessarily my values, and so that's why I'm so chumming with all these other people, because
Well,
I'm just
I
interested in
agree.
power more than values. And I think you've kind of espoused this, that
I agree. I mean, I remember years ago, I went to New Mexico Military Institute, and one of my fellow alumni was a newsman called Sam Donaldson. And Donaldson, I forget if it was NBC or CBS, one or the other. But we were at an alumni event, and he was drunk as drunk could be, and he'd always, smack Reagan around. This is when Reagan was still president. And so I said, what do you really think, Mr. Donaldson? What do you really think of Ronald Reagan? Oh, he's great. Best president I've ever lived under. And I said, you wouldn't think so from the way you talk about him on TV. He goes, oh, that's just television. Who the hell believes that?
well, that's one of the things that's floating in my head too, is some of your behind the scenes interactions with, because you've been part of the machinery, and
A little bit.
a little bit, right? So
A little bit to have my stomach turned.
yeah, you've seen how the sausage is made.
I have. Yep, yep. Pile some more crap on. It's
So
too yummy not to share.
yeah. So anyhow,
But no, I mean, to answer your basic question, the fact is that the political class come from relatively similar backgrounds and relatively similar views. Uh, they tend to be amoral. Uh, they have no problem marrying several times. This isn't an issue. Uh, they, they believe that smoking should be limited and perversion pushed.
yeah, no, I mean, to me, this is going to be kind of sharp, but I feel like so many politicians, like on the Republican side, like they pretend they're Christian. Democrats
Well,
pretend
I'm sure they're sincere.
Democrats pretend they're anti-war.
Yeah,
Republicans pretend they're fiscally responsible. Like it's not easy.
yeah.
It's just words, you know.
What do you mean just words? Does it get them elected? Yes. So it's not just words. See? Got you
Okay,
there, smart.
that's true. That's true. It's marketing.
See?
It's marketing.
Yeah.
All right.
I, mean,
Are you ready for more questions?
I am. I'm just going back for a minute to the live chat. Um, I'm just seeing Victoria offers $1.99. That's great. Hi, Tori Chad wants to know if this is live. It is. Yeah, we put on masks, they took those off. All true. Oh no, did I stumble on the 13th floor? We need a live tour of the 13th floor. I love that. You know, actually, I tried to give one once. Did I ever tell you that story?
Uh, yes, a couple times, but go ahead and tell it again, Charles.
Well, no, there was a mixed group from the Arcadia Chamber of Commerce, the Arcadia Historical Society, and there was somebody else. Anyway, so I was going to take them up to the 13th floor because they'd heard about it on the show and all, and I wanted to see it. So it was one of the cross quarter days, so I knew that it would probably appear. I figured I'd go up first, to set it up for them, right? So I get on the elevator, and sure enough, there's 13. I press it, up goes the elevator. The door opens up, and then I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
You just went in the elevator, I think.
Where
The
was that
door
taking
opens
the
up.
elevator?
The
Where was
13th
that?
floor.
Oh, oh, you mean when I was going to take this group up? Right, right. So anyway, I pushed 13 because it was a cross quarter day, and sure enough, there was a 13. I press it, up the thing goes, the door opens, and then it. I'm sorry, I had a little bit of a brain thing. What were we talking about?
We're just getting more questions, Charles. It's okay.
All
Yeah.
right, more questions. Those sound good.
Yeah. Okay. Pierre says, why is there a perceived willingness to engage with or even find intellectual nuance in figures from the radical left, like Lenin or Rosa Luxemburg, while figures from the radical right, like Mussolini or de Grelle, are largely dismissed out of hand as purely evil?
Well, that goes back to what I was saying when we were talking about Jimmy Kimmel. The fact is, but particularly it has to do with academia and historiography. Notice everyone talks about the far right, but we no longer talk about the far left. The implication being that there is no such thing. There's good guys who are all to the left, and then to the right, the further right they go, the more evil they are. Now, of course, Mussolini isn't really a man of the right anyway. He's a man of the left, but they don't like him. He was a socialist who was named Benito after Benito Juarez. His name, to be Italian, his name would have been Benedetto. But his dad was a socialist. He grew up a socialist. My grandfather used to call Adolf Hitler a brown-shirted Bolshevik. And the Nazis, all these guys are men of the left. Why do I say this? Well, because in Europe, the men of the right were the opponents of the revolutions. And the Mussolini, to a great degree, and Hitler definitely, was yet another variety of that. as I think it was John Lukács, who said they were their own unsuccessful varieties of modernity. And Degrelle is another case. Degrelle was one of the Rexists. They had a whole idea of reorganizing society along Christian lines. And as happened with a lot of people during World War II of the traditional Catholic right in Europe, or the traditional right outside of Catholic Europe, Scandinavia and so on. You had people with a basically good vision, but they either collaborated thinking that might be a shortcut to getting what they wanted, and it turned out to be a dead end because they were collaborating with men of the left, or they could join the resistance and then end up becoming totally irrelevant after 1945 because, of course, they had to collaborate with men of the left. No matter what they did, they were wrong. And now it's interesting that throughout Europe, the memory of most of the resistance is ambiguous. And it's ambiguous because they were, quote unquote, anti-democratic. They were monarchists, they were Catholic, they were Christian. In other words, they were everything that the current leadership in Europe are not. And in truth, the current leadership in Europe have more in common with the Nazis than they do with the resistance, which is why every year when the anniversary of Stauffenberg's plot comes up, their official stuff is all, well, of course, Stauffenberg and his Confederates were brave, but they were anti-democratic and they didn't understand how wonderful we are. And they did. They understood completely how wonderful you are. Absolutely. Anyway, that's why we denigrate the ideas of the right because we're afraid of them. We're afraid that the people really looked at people like von Stauffenberg or Father Heinrich Meyer in Austria, or Colonel de la Roque in France, that maybe they would want to adopt them. And that would be horrible because it might be the end of the co-political class, and that would be terrible.
So one of the things one of the aspects of the left is this embrace of socialism. And, I'm reminded of something you said about heresies, where they typically have like a 500-year useful life, like, right? The big ones, right? And so I'm wondering, like, how long is this train of thought going to be around with socialism? Like, how long is this going to take to play out?
I couldn't tell you. I know that Protestantism is finally coming to its nadir. That's another bit of news. Secure Stormtrooper, two-tier Kier.
Yeah.
He's just appointed a new Archbishopess of Canterbury, the first chick to be head of the Anglican Communion.
The Prime Minister appoints that?
Yeah, who do you think he appointed it?
I actually did. I have no idea. I thought the king was the head of the church.
The king is the head of the church the way he's the head of state. Ceremonially, symbolically, on paper. But the buck stops, rises and falls on Secure Stormtrooper's pointed little head.
I'm confused though, because isn't he Jewish or something?
Yeah, like so I don't think he's a believer.
Yeah, he's not a believer.
His Easter message was great. He thanked the Christian communities for their contribution to our country. I don't know who "our" was supposed to be. We. I don't know.
It's unusual. Let's take a question from chat, shall we?
All right.
Waylon was good enough to give us a little donation there, and he asks, "Who are the candidates for the Polish crown?" Ooh.
That's a good question. And the answer is that's an intricate question. There are none as such. When the for about 650 years, well, the Polish crown had several dynasties. It became extinct, and finally it became elective, entirely elective. So they got various people elected as kings of Poland. King Henry III of France, before he succeeded to the French throne, was king of Poland for a short while. He was elected. They were elected not by the general population, but by the nobility. And a single individual could veto a king's election. So as a result, the elections were very difficult, and the kings, unless they were very powerful figures in their own right, were often non-entities. You had the king of had several kings or electors, as they were at the time of Saxony, elected kings of Poland in the 18th century. But the last elected king of Poland was Stanislaus Poniatowski, who was basically put into the role by Catherine the Great. He was a former lover, and it was kind of a cast-off job. So he ended up being the last king of Poland and presided over the country during the three partitions, 1775, 1793, 1795, that ended in its elimination. Well, the French Revolution comes along. Napoleon dictates that the bits that part of the country that had been taken by Prussia would be united with part that had been taken by Austria, and that would be the Grand Duchy of Warsaw, and the King of Saxony would be Grand Duke. Well, Napoleon's defeated, the Saxons are defeated. The Grand Duchy is again divided. A chunk goes to Prussia, the rest goes to Russia, and it's called Congress Poland. Legally, it's supposed to be a separate kingdom under the Tsar, which Alexander I was keen on. He was sort of pro-Catholic. When he died, his not-so-pro-Catholic brother, Nicholas, became Tsar. And then there was a revolution in 1831, and that was the end of Congress Poland. So the Prussians tried to Prussify, Germanize their Poles. So the only area in which the Poles had any sort of political and cultural freedom was in Austria-Hungary. Well, in the 1860s, you began to develop a school of thought in Krakow, which was part of Austria at the time, bringing in the Emperor of Austria as King of Poland. The idea being that you would have this triune state, Austria, Hungary, and a restored Poland under the House of Habsburg. So that idea floated around until World War I. World War I comes along. The Germans and the Austrians push the Russians out of Poland, and they proclaim an independent kingdom of Poland in 1917. But there's all sorts of jockeying back and forth as to who's going to be the king, and that's never really decided. And then they're defeated, and Poland becomes independent as a republic. So the answer is, and there was still a lot of active monarchists, but they had not really decided who would be king of Poland. So to answer the question, maybe the head of the House of Habsburg, maybe the head of the House of Saxony, maybe this, maybe that, maybe somebody elected to the job.
Okay. So, Vendée Radio has a question. Good old Vendée. He says, "Dear Charles, what are your thoughts on Arthurian Republicanism?"
Well, Arthurian Republicanism is the idea that you can have a Catholic medieval inspired republic today. Um, you know, frankly, I don't think a great deal of the notion of Catholic republicanism, simply because it's never really existed. Even when you had Catholic republics in the Middle Ages, they were part of a larger monarchical structure. And those we've had in modern days just haven't lasted long. They've been corrupted really quick. I think there's too much of a gap between the ideas of modernity and the ideas of the faith to establish anything stable.
It seems unusual that someone's taking, the story of King Arthur that involves a monarchy, and it's like transposing it onto Republican form of government.
It doesn't make any sense to me, honestly. I don't follow the arguments. So,
I believe Thomas Aquinas, in speaking of monarchy, he explained that there are the three different types of government, which is the king, the monarch, but then there is
three good kinds of government, three bad kinds.
But that it incorporates it all three at different levels.
Well, yeah. In other words, like for instance, someone asked about San Marino. Well, San Marino was part of the Holy Roman Empire, so it was like a city-state, and Italy was filled with city-states, but they were not sovereign in the sense that we think of sovereign today. They ran their own affairs, but that was typical of every place. Again, our ideas of governance are so far from the way our ancestors thought. The duchies and counties and baronies and all that were independent virtually. Now, they didn't look at it that way, though. They ran their own affairs, but that was subsidiarity. And I mean, a good example last time this kind of thing happened was when the Emperor of Austria went to war with Prussia in 1866, and 88 soldiers of Liechtenstein went off to join the Austrian army to fight the Prussians. 88, because Liechtenstein was a little principality, and that was all that was required in the Emperor's wars. I always think in that, and of course it's unfair to Liechtenstein, but I always think of Lord of the Rings, where they say the hobbits were obligated to aid the king of Cawdor, and at the last battle in Arnor, although no one else says this happened, they claim they sent a small company who never returned. And that always made me think of Liechtenstein's contribution to the Austro-Prussian War.
All right. Let's see here. Vendée Radio has another question revolving around King Arthur. He says, what is the symbolic reason why King Arthur chooses to fill any vacant seats of the Round Table at Pentecost?
That's an easy one. The inspiration of the Holy Ghost. Yeah. And of course, the other thing too about King Arthur is that he keeps all of the holidays very strongly. King Arthur kept Pentecost at Caerleon on Usk. King Arthur kept Christmas at Carlisle. King Arthur kept Easter, and you see this over and over and over again. The importance of the liturgical year in the Arthurian legends.
All right. Carl, superfan Carl. He says, I have a question for Charles about Julian the Apostate. I was recently listening to The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire and was struck by the author's description of Julian the Apostate. In particular, Julian was described as a heroic figure that won freedom of religion in the empire. Reading accounts from early Christians, we hear a very different perspective. It made me ponder, if viewed through the same lens, how would Julian the Apostate compare to our founding fathers? How would Julian stack up to our modern politicians that we despise and admire? It's interesting.
Well, Julian the Apostate was an apostate, and he hated the faith. And of course, when he died, he realized that he attempted to reinvigorate paganism and give it a new life. He failed. And so when he died, he said, "Thou hast conquered, O Galilean." Well, that was an honesty you probably won't see in most politicians today. How was he like the founding fathers? In the sense he was trying to create something new and artificial, I suppose he resembled them. Politicians today, well, he wasn't much like them because I say he was terribly honest at the end of it all. Thou hast conquered, O Galilean.
So Julian the Apostate, he was a pagan.
Well, he had been a Christian, and then he reverted to paganism.
Yeah. This reminds me of a very one of my favorite chapters of Solange Hertz in her books. Obviously, we publish many of her books, and she uses, I think, Julian the Apostate to make an important point about pagans, and I think, yeah. So one of the points she says is that pagans can be very, very virtuous, very moral people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, humanly speaking.
Humanly speaking, yeah. So there is a morality. There is a morality of sorts there. They can be some of the most moral people that you know. And I thought that was interesting because what she was trying to do was she was trying to say these people that you find to be good people who are nevertheless not Catholic, they're like the pagans of old that people were, that we hear about, but they still need to be brought to Christ.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I
Well,
think
definitely.
that, yeah.
I mean, you see, that bringing them to Christ supernaturalizes their natural virtues.
Because I think what she was trying to dispel was sort of this imagery of like barbarians and savages suddenly, like living barbarically, and then suddenly they're all dressed up and they have manners and they are very devout. But she's trying to say it's not like that exactly.
No, grace builds on nature.
Yeah. So I just think that's such an important point when it comes to evangelizing people and the need to evangelize. I know you're huge on this, Charles.
Well, you see, that is because, especially in our society, this is true of the founding fathers, right? There's this notion that religion is useful because it inculcates morality.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what it's about. Morality is a means to an end. Now, don't get me wrong; it's the essential means to the end, but it's only the beginning, and it's the beginning of something that takes you beyond what we know, beyond this world of ours, into realms unthinkable. I mean, obviously, if you don't practice natural virtues, you've got nothing upon which to hang supernatural virtues. But if you think natural virtues are all you need and all that's required, well, no. Not at all. You have to supernaturalize them.
All right. What do we got? We have a question from. Oh, final question. Actually, a really good question from Tim.
Okay.
Tim says, as far as the recent events are concerned, what has been on my mind through all of it is what Charles once said. don't expect a society that allows abortion to produce anything good. I noticed all the hand wringing in Minnesota after the church shooting. Thought how many kids died of abortion just the previous week. And some of the same people who are okay with that suddenly are wondering why kids are being killed. I also wonder if the whole us versus them situation is part of our country's latent Calvinism. Mm.
I'd agree with both. I mean, any culture in which the murder of infants is okay is barbarous. It's nasty, and that nastiness will spill over into everything. With Calvinism, of course, well, we're the chosen people, and those who aren't us are Canaanites. And yeah, I can see where that probably does spill over into the whole us versus them. And it's poison. It's absolute poison. I remember when Charlie Kirk was murdered, and I put out some things I thought would be peacemaking. And were people on my side upset with me? They were baying for blood. Well, and mind you, the other side, while it produced some sensible people, there were also morons shouting he deserved it. Well, okay. Part of me says, let's get the two of you together in a field somewhere, and you guys kill each other. Just rip each other's throats out. And then let sane people try to live lives.
I think this too. You've said this one time, and stuff happens where I keep thinking that thought where it's like, gosh, we're going to get God in the crossfire.
Well, that's what happens. That's what happens. I mean, I recommended it before, but see the movie Civil War. I mean, it looks at the mechanics of Civil War in and of itself. And as I told you before, what I love about it is that they depoliticize it by having the two states that initially secede being Texas and California. So we never find out what the political things are. And it's in response to that secession that the president takes a third term. So, yeah, he violates the Constitution, but we don't know why. And that's great because they focus on the unraveling of decency, the unraveling of society that these things cause. I mean, in 1947, when India became independent, 1.5 million people died through the partition of India.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to bother anybody. Oh, well, they're just 1.5 million brown people. Doesn't matter that much. What do you say? What do you say when this sorts of things happen? And people basically imply, well, I guess they deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no answer to that, except if you really think so, wait for it to come to your neighborhood, then tell them what you think.
Yeah, I really the us versus them mentality. I feel as sort of spawning from our Calvinist roots. I think that's so important to mention because it's such a huge obstacle to everything, to turning everything around.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things you pointed out, for example, an example of a people who didn't have an us versus them mentality. I guess this is debatable depending on where you stand, but the conquistadors, the Spanish people who came over here and intermarried with the Native Americans. They intermarried. For some reason, nobody makes that connection with where it's like, why did the Spanish intermarry with the Native Americans, but the white Protestants didn't? What?
Well,
No one seems to make that
well,
connection, and yet the black legend still, you know, is still quite prominent. You know,
you're not supposed to notice.
you're not supposed to notice. I mean,
No, that's a hate fact.
that's for
It's a hate
sure.
fact.
That's for sure. Big time hate fact. Um,
Basically, it's true, but it shouldn't be, and you're bad for knowing it.
yeah. Well, but why am I bad? Because I'm trashing white people and embracing Spanish people, but I
Well, yeah, but see that's no,
we don't do that here.
no,
Okay.
because the Spanish are worse than the. See, don't forget the Spanish tried to make Catholics out of the Indians. Most of the Protestants did not try to do that.
Oh well, that's
I mean,
yeah.
they give them smallpox blankets, but they didn't try to make them Christian.
Yeah, Hawthorne in chat says, I guarantee they would say it wasn't voluntary. Of course.
No, of course not.
Of course.
Of course not.
Okay, do you want to read some chat, Charles? I know you like taking advantage of this live opportunity. And so before we just finish up, there's some questions in chat for you if you'd like to give some things a run through.
Let me get there. Let's see what we got. Live chat.
We're gonna try to do this. We're gonna try to do this more regularly. We Charles and I typically film early afternoon Pacific time. You know, so if we're gonna go live, it's gonna be sometime like noon Pacific time. Maybe an hour earlier because I know it's late for him right now. It's like what is it, 11:30?
Yeah, it's 11:37. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Hasn't the Church of England already had female leaders? Queen Elizabeth? No, she didn't. Well, I mean, you could say Maggie Thatcher. Let me see what we got. Charles, what does Charles think of the John Birch Society? Interesting bunch. Which country is closest to returning to a true monarchy?
Maybe a small one, not even a little baby one.
All right, the Holy See.
Oh no. Okay, you got bazing.
But wait, there's more.
Okay.
Operators are standing by. No, anyway, well, listen. It's been a great experience doing this live. We'll try it again next week if we can. Not next week, but next time. I'm looking forward to getting back to Trumau, hanging out with my peeps, and then out to New England and New York, and the traveling celebration show continues. Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show.
All right. So yeah, as I said, we're gonna try to do this more regularly. So be on the lookout. 2 Saturdays from now, we're doing this every other Saturday. So, hopefully we'll see you guys then. And I guess that's it. That's gonna do it for this episode. Charles, what is it if it's Monday?
It's off the menu.
What about the soul you saved, though?
It may well be your own.
See you next time, everyone. Thank you for everyone who donated in the chat. Victoria, My Ear Trumpet, all you people, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Thank you for all the support and love.